Welcome to Hollywood Latest Reports. For months, whispers have surrounded the close-knit Swaggart ministry family, particularly revolving around Grace Brumley and Joseph Larson, two of the most recognizable young voices within the ministry. Known for their powerful worship and devout dedication to God's work, both have lived much of their lives under the public eye. But behind the harmonies and stage lights, rumors began to swirl. Rumors about tension, distance, and emotional struggles that no one could quite confirm. Finally, Grace Brumley has broken her silence. What she shared was not an exposé of scandal, but an emotional confession that laid bare her heart, revealing pain, growth, and an unshakable faith that carried her through one of the most challenging periods of her life. A perfect partnership, on stage and off. When Grace and Joseph first began ministering together, many described them as a perfect match. Their voices blended seamlessly in worship services, their smiles radiated warmth, and their devotion to faith made them an inspiration to thousands. Grace, the daughter of Pastor Gabriel and Jill Swaggart, grew up within the heart of the family worship center. From her earliest days, she was surrounded by music, faith, and the expectations that came with being a member of one of America's most well-known evangelical families. Joseph Larson, on the other hand, had already established himself as one of the ministry's most passionate worship leaders. His powerful performances on Sun Life Broadcasting Network, SBN, and his soulful renditions of gospel songs made him a household name among followers of the Swaggart ministry. Together, they seemed unstoppable. But as with many people in ministry, their journey wasn't without its private challenges. The rise of the rumors. It began subtly. Fans noticed Grace appearing less frequently in Joseph's musical appearances. Videos and photos that once captured them singing side by side became rare. Some speculated that the two had grown distant. Others, fueled by social media gossip, went as far as to claim that Grace was stepping away from music altogether. For months, neither addressed the speculation. Grace continued her quiet involvement in church events, while Joseph carried on leading worship, his trademark sincerity undimmed. But for those who knew the emotional cost of constant public attention, it was clear that something was weighing on Grace's spirit. Grace breaks her silence. In a heartfelt testimony shared during a youth worship night at Family Worship Center, Grace finally spoke openly, her voice trembling yet strong. "I've learned that silence can protect you for a while," she said, her eyes glistening under the church lights. "But sometimes, silence also hides your healing. I wasn't running from my calling or from anyone. I was trying to find peace again, the kind of peace that only comes when you stop performing and start listening to God." Her words resonated deeply with the congregation. There was no bitterness, no accusation, only vulnerability. Grace admitted that the past months had been emotionally draining, filled with confusion and pressure. "There were days I didn't know who I was outside of the songs and the expectations. I love Joseph, and I love our ministry, but I needed time to remember who Grace was. Just Grace, not someone's daughter or someone's partner in ministry." It was a confession that silenced gossip more powerfully than any denial could. The weight of expectations. Growing up in a family like the Swaggarts is both an honor and a burden. The family name carries decades of legacy, music, sermons, controversies, and redemption. Every member of the family is watched closely, every move analyzed, every emotion dissected. For Grace, this spotlight brought unique pressure. She wasn't just a young woman of faith. She was a symbol of a generation expected to continue a spiritual dynasty. In her confession, she shared, "People forget that behind the music, behind the ministry, there are real hearts. We get tired, we doubt, we struggle, but that doesn't mean our faith is weak. It means we're human." These words struck a chord with many young believers who also felt trapped by the weight of religious expectations. Grace's openness revealed that vulnerability, far from being a weakness, could be a form of worship. Joseph Larson's quiet response. While Grace's words were filled with emotion, Joseph's response came in a different form, through music. Just days after her heartfelt talk, he performed a song titled "Still Standing" by Grace. The lyrics seemed to echo what Grace had expressed. "When the silence feels too heavy, Ibrahim, and the crowd begins to fade. Ibrahim, I remember who still loves me. Ibrahim, even when I'm afraid." Joseph didn't publicly address the rumors or Grace's statement directly, but those who knew them both understood. His song was his way of saying, "I understand." Close friends of the couple later revealed that Joseph had been supportive of Grace's decision to step back for reflection. He never tried to control her journey, one insider shared. He respected her need for space and believed that whatever was meant to be, God would bring it back together. The human side of ministry. Grace's confession opened a larger conversation among followers of the ministry. How much pressure do young ministers face behind the scenes? The expectations of perfection, to always smile, always serve, always sing, can slowly chip away at one's spirit. Grace's story reminded everyone that spiritual leaders are not immune to burnout or emotional exhaustion. There were days I'd lead worship and feel empty inside, Grace admitted. It wasn't because I didn't believe anymore. It was because I hadn't rested in God's love. I was trying to prove something that God never asked me to prove. Her honesty was rare, especially in a culture where image often overshadows authenticity. And yet, her confession didn't weaken her testimony. It strengthened it. It reminded thousands that true faith isn't found in pretending to be perfect, it's found in being real. Fans react with compassion. The confession spread quickly online. Clips of her emotional speech circulated across YouTube and Instagram, with fans commenting messages of love and support. Grace just proved what it means to walk in truth, one commenter wrote. She's real, she's raw, and that's why people connect with her, said another. What had begun as gossip about a supposed rift turned into a collective moment of healing, not just for Grace, but for her audience. Her courage inspired many to confront their own hidden struggles, healing through faith. After her confession, Grace took a short break from ministry appearances. During that time, she reportedly devoted herself to prayer, songwriting, and mentoring young women of faith. She shared brief reflections on social media, verses, thoughts about grace, and gentle reminders of God's unconditional love. One post read, "God doesn't call us to be flawless, He calls us to be faithful. Even when you fall apart, He can use your brokenness to heal others." Those who saw her in person described her as lighter, more peaceful, and renewed. Her renewed focus on God's love rather than human approval reflected a transformation that could only come through surrender. Joseph and Grace, where they stand now. While neither Grace nor Joseph has offered a detailed statement about their personal relationship, their mutual respect is evident. They have shared the stage again, their performances filled with sincerity and unity. Observers have noticed a new maturity in their worship. It's less about performance and more about presence. Two people who have walked through emotional storms and found their faith intact on the other side. We've both learned that love, in ministry, in friendship, in life, is tested not in public but in private, Grace said recently. What matters most isn't what people say about us, but what God says to us. A message beyond the rumors. Grace Brumley's emotional confession did more than address rumors. It redefined what it means to be transparent in faith. Her courage to speak up about emotional exhaustion, expectations, and personal rediscovery turned what could have been a scandal into a story of redemption. She reminded her generation that faith is not a performance, it's a relationship, messy, beautiful, and ever-growing. As one church member beautifully put it, Grace didn't fall from grace, she found grace, the kind that doesn't depend on perfection but on honesty. Lessons for every believer. Grace's story offers a universal message. No one is too faithful to struggle, and no one is too broken to heal. Her confession teaches three powerful lessons. Authenticity is stronger than image. T. Burr. The world doesn't need flawless Christians, it needs honest ones. Healing often requires stepping back. Brew. Taking time away from noise and expectation isn't quitting, it's surviving. Faith grows in transparency. E. Burr. When we admit our weakness, we create room for God's strength to show up. In sharing her truth, Grace not only restored her own peace, but also inspired countless others to seek healing in their own journeys. The next chapter. Today, both Grace and Joseph continue to serve in ministry with renewed clarity. Their worship is deeper, their words more intentional, and their message more personal. In a recent interview, Grace reflected on her journey. "I wouldn't trade the struggle for anything. It taught me to stop trying to be everyone's idea of perfect and start being the person God already loves." Whether or not the rumors about tension were ever true no longer matters. What matters is the example Grace set, of courage, faith, and emotional honesty in the face of relentless scrutiny. Months after her emotional confession, Grace Brumley's transformation has become even more visible. Not through grand statements or headlines, but through quiet strength. Those who've attended her recent ministry events say she carries a gentler spirit, a peace that only comes when someone has wrestled with their doubts and found faith stronger on the other side. During a recent women's retreat, Grace shared more insight into her personal journey. Sometimes God lets us walk through silence so we can finally hear His voice again. I thought I lost direction, but what I really lost was my need to control everything. And when I let go, peace came rushing in like a river. Her honesty drew tears from the audience. It wasn't a sermon. It was a testimony from a woman who had lived what she was preaching. Grace spoke openly about battling anxiety, self-doubt, and fear of judgment, especially as a public figure in a powerful ministry family. Yet, instead of hiding behind polished perfection, she embraced her weakness as part of her story. If you only ever show people your strength, they'll never understand how powerful God's strength really is, she said. Joseph's support and silent faith. Though Joseph Larson remains largely private, his actions have spoken volumes. Sources close to both families say that through Grace's time of reflection, Joseph quietly stood by her, offering space, prayer, and unwavering understanding. Joseph's maturity really showed through this entire season. One insider shared, "He didn't try to defend or explain anything publicly. He just lived his faith. He let God do the talking." Their joint appearances since then, especially during special worship nights, have carried a depth that wasn't there before. Gone is the youthful excitement of early ministry. In its place is something more grounded, more real. Worship that feels born from trials, not performance. Fans who once followed them for their talent now follow them for their testimony. Together, they've become living proof that ministry is not about perfection, but perseverance. The Brumley legacy continues. Pastor Gabriel Swaggart, Grace's father, has also publicly expressed his pride in her courage. During a Sunday service, he referred indirectly to her testimony, saying, "True faith isn't tested when everything's easy. It's proven when you're walking through fire and still choose to praise." It was clear he was speaking from a father's heart, acknowledging the strength of his daughter without turning her journey into spectacle. Grace's story has now become an example for countless young women in the church who face similar pressures to appear perfect.